All right. A little later than usual, but we are live for Mavs Fastbreak. I'm the host, DDP, joined once again by Max Levy, aka Rangers King 669. Max, how are you doing today? Hello, Max.
Hey DK, I'm sorry. I had to mute for a second. Someone was talking to me.
Yeah. No, you're good, man. What's up?
Yeah, I'm good. Have some renewed optimism for the season right now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's I've been looking more at the schedule since it came out. I know that we talked a little bit on it previously, but I wanted to take a more in-depth look at it. And man, I was right in my initial gut that it is not an easy schedule. Your first four feel very winnable, and then it kind of skews away from that in the next four. I think let me pull it up again here. But basically, we're opening up with Phoenix. I think we got Atlanta in there. The only one that I think was kind of tough. I think Dallas can start 3-1, but then after that it gets really sketchy. And there's a stretch at one point where Dallas, I think it's from mid-December until like the second week of January or something. So about a month stretch where Dallas is like 10 out of 13 on the road. And it's something just brutal like that it's going to be tough for any team, but especially a young team like Dallas. What are your thoughts looking at that? Have you had a chance to look at the schedule more since we last did a show?
I wish I could say yes, but I'm going to pull it up right now so I can kind of talk about it a little bit.
Yep.
So, yeah, those first four, I mean, Minnesota is still not the easiest of opponent.
No, and that's the one that I thought could be a loss of that. Yeah. I think Dallas could start 3-1.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we all thought so too, but then game one open season last year, we lost to the Hawks, so I mean...
No, and that's right. I mean, just because we think that Dallas has a good chance in those games and that they could start with that kind of record, it's no guarantee. You got to play the game, and you got to see how it actually plays out for you if you're Dallas. And it's just no cakewalk, and the Western Conference is so absurdly stacked just in its own right that you're really going to be hard-pressed to win. I mean, Vegas had 34.5 wins projected for the season, and I look at it and I kind of wonder if this is a team that can win 34, 36 games just because of how stacked it is within the divisions or the conference. So let's see here.
So really quick, I had that tweet earlier. I just wanted to go back on that.
Yeah, the win share thing. Absolutely. Get into that.
Yeah. So there's a projection out there using the stat called player impact plus minus. I referenced it in the Brokoff report.
Mm-hmm.
And they use player impact minus to project records. It's written by this guy named Jacob Goldstein. And basically what's happening is the projections for four particular players in the Mavericks go down, and I'm not sure if those four players are going to get worse, and those four players are Devin Harris, J.J. Barea, Dwight Powell, and Dirk.
Yeah.
Each of them declined significantly in the model, and the model projects them as right where Vegas has them, 34.5 wins.
Right.
So if we look at what the model expects versus what they put up last year in terms of wins added, talking about if Devin Harris, JJ, and Dwight produce as they did last year, which they probably will, I think, is a fair assumption, and at least at this point, you're talking about a difference of 5.5 extra wins.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you add in Dirk to that, you suddenly get to 8. But, Dirk's 40 years old, so
yeah.
I don't want to put any kind of expectation other than hopefully above 0.
Yeah, if Dirk has a positive plus minus, then I mean impact with that regard, then I think that's good for this season, honestly, because he doesn't want to send off Swan Song tour, but this is more than likely it for him. And coming off the bench being the sixth man, which I think is what will probably happen, I think that gives him the best chance to still make an impact at this point. So we'll see on that regard, but it is crazy. Let's see, D-Town text is pointing out here in the comments that video that came out of Dennis Smith throwing the lob to himself. And did you see the video of that? His head's like literally eye level with the rim.
Yeah, it was like all over Twitter.
Yeah. That was quite impressive. We've seen a couple of these videos now with him, and although I do like the athleticism and it is freakish by all means, I do kind of want to. I kind of want to see more of his like shooting workouts, because no one's questioned his athleticism or anything like that. What I want to see from him is the growth in his game, as far as outside scoring and all of that. He's got the ability to do it, but he's got to take kind of that next step. He wasn't a super efficient scorer as a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with that, though, is that I think maybe he's keeping the serious stuff under wraps.
Sure.
And he's working with Steph Curry's trainer.
Yep.
So that has to mean something. And I think he's just trying to keep the good stuff under wraps and keep it a surprise.
I mean, that'd be really nice to see, but it is, it's not like you're tipping your hand on like a playbook or anything like that. It's just showing growth in a jump shot, and guys are going to close out regardless. So I don't know. If he is doing that, if he's working on it behind the scenes, maybe while he's trying to hone that, he's just trying not to put that out there as publicly. Fine. As long as he improves in that regard, great. He'll get better opportunities, even in terms of just around the rim this year, because of the attention like Luka Doncic and, even to a lesser extent like DeAndre Jordan for the lob threat will create. It'll give him more chances to get to the rim, I think, and that'll open up some more for him. But I do want to see that next step in his game. That's one of those things that we talked about for Dallas to take that next step as far as being able to recruit these big-name free agents. I think that him taking that next step in his game where he's not just a highlight reel of dunks will be a major step to that. That and Doncic showing that he is the playmaker and, general difference maker for the team that we think. Let's see.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, so I got the schedule pulled up here. So they open at the Suns. Then they have the home opener versus the T-Wolves on the 20th, October 20th. Then they got the Bulls and the Hawks. First four, I think that could be a 3-1 start for Dallas. The only one of that's a question mark, obviously, the Timberwolves. They were the 8th seed last year, but they did win 47 games, and they are a highly talented team. So that one's going to be tough. But then you got a brutal stretch right after that. You got at the Raptors, who, if they don't have DeRozan, but if Kawhi is anything like the Kawhi we remember, then that's going to be a very, very tough game. They also have then the Jazz, the Spurs, and the Lakers, and that's going to be a tough thing. So that great 3-1 start might kind of drop off immediately if that's the case. But then you got games with the Knicks, the Wizards. The Wizards feels like a toss-up to me about if they could win that one or not. But it's a tough schedule, and a lot of that's just being in the Western Conference. But even the couple cases here where they face an Eastern Conference team, they're getting typically the better draws of that when you're having to face a Toronto in that regard. So let's see.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little unfortunate, but the Mavs have had a pretty good history with the Wizards the past few years. They've been beating them a lot.
Yep.
So
you're right.
I think Rick Carlisle can outsmart Scott Brooks again. And in terms of the first four games, I think my main worry is not with the Hawks or the Bulls, but the Suns. I think the Suns view the Mavericks the same way the Mavericks view the Suns, and like they're looking at us like, you know what, that's a game we can win. So I think we're both looking at it as like we both can win the game. So I think it may be a much closer contest than we're all anticipating.
Yeah. This team is going to be more exciting than last year, and I think it's a much more talented team. I think they will be able to stay in games. They did a pretty good job staying in games last year. They lost like some absurd number, like 22 games decided by 6 points or less last year. So if you even get half of those back, the 24 wins, at that point you're looking at 35. So that's your mark right there. So I really do think that even though the West got tougher, they were closer. Even with as many games last year, as we said, at times trying to lose games. I think that this team, if they're actually going to go all out for the playoffs, and as long as they don't get off to a really, really bad start, like something like a 6-14 start, if they don't do that, then they're going to continue to push for the playoffs. But do you think there is any kind of chance that if Dallas does get off to a shaky start through the first 20, they could try to reassess the possibility of either pushing for the 8th seed and trying to hang on to that number 1 pick?
Well, here's the thing. 16-17, we were in a very similar situation in regards to having a very poor start. Mm-hmm. And then magically, somehow getting almost back in the playoffs. We were like only a few games out. So I think they're going to fight till the end.
Yeah.
Looking at some of the players in that draft. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Looking at some of the players in that draft, R.J. Barrett. R.J. Barrett's pretty nice, but he's not. The one problem with him is that he definitely can't space the floor. He needs a lot of the ball in order to make it work. And do we need 3 dominant ball handlers on our team? Like 2 is good, but at a certain point, like 3 handlers all at the same time is like there's only 1 ball.
Yeah. I mean, you can look for OKC for that problem last year. Paul George can play off the ball a bit, but that was something that plagued them a little bit. And even in the previous incarnation, they had the same issue when they had Harden. They went to the finals, but they had 3 ball-dominant guys, and they were by a mile last in the league in assists.
Yeah, and now Melo's in Houston, so.
Yeah, with Harden, ironic. But, yeah, I don't know what to make of that. I still think Houston will be good. I do think they are going to be less good than they were last year. I think they gave up a lot of the defensive grit and playmaking that made them really able to challenge the Warriors. And in place, they got Melo, who, he can score a few more points, but what he gives up in terms of defense, in terms of killing the flow of an offense, it's going to hurt them more, I think. Now, maybe they're a little more better geared to deal with that with a Chris Paul at point guard instead of a Russell Westbrook, but it is one of those things, nevertheless, that they're going to have to struggle with, and it could make them take a little bit of a step back. I don't know who steps forward in that gap to try and challenge Golden State. I don't even know if anyone really can challenge Golden State this year now that they've added Boogie, but we'll see. That's the fun of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors are kind of untouchable again this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they absolutely are.
Yeah, the only team I could think about is if, Donovan Mitchell just takes another, huge step in his second year and becomes, an MVP caliber player somehow, then the Jazz would have a decent shot.
Yeah.
But that's impossible to predict.
Yeah, it is. And even if they did take that next step, I still have some questions about if they have enough around him to do it, because he can be phenomenal. He could even take another giant step forward and be in that upper echelon of talent among the NBA, not just a standout, really, really impressive rookie. But even still, it's one guy against literally 5 All-Stars from last season. So it's hard to see anyone making any kind of push against them, but hopefully they can. Hopefully we're wrong on that. Let me run through some of the comments here. Shout out, as I said before, D-Town Tex G, Randy O. Roberts II, Isaiah Hunt, Gleh in the house. What's up, Gleh? And Eric Anthony as well. What's up, guys? Julian Smith. But, yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see how this season shapes up. So I want to try and tally here what their schedule looks like with regard to the first 20 games, because I heard it laid out in a podcast I was listening to the other day, and it sounds like they really are going to have trouble with that start. The first 4 feel pretty winnable. Then you got a tough 4 right after that. Let's see here. So the games you start feeling a little more iffy about, as I mentioned, Raptors, Jazz, Spurs, Lakers. You got a Knicks in there and a Wizards. Those could be winnable. You got a Thunder. They tend to play the Thunder well, but they don't have the firepower to really go at them the same way. Then they got the Jazz again, Spurs again. Oh, sorry, no, that's pulling from the end of that month. After the Thunder, they got at Bulls. They do have the Jazz again there. Oh, man, they hit the Warriors early on, too. Grizzlies, Nets, Celtics. So, yeah, it's no pushover for sure, and a lot of that just comes with the conference. If Dallas was in the East, Dallas could probably be a 5 seed, it feels like, this year, just looking at everything I've seen.
Yeah, maybe I would probably say closer to 6 or 7, just because, the Bucks have Giannis Antetokounmpo and all that. but like right there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and Cuban's kind of jokingly over the years suggested that, like, kind of pitched that idea of a realignment that would put Dallas in the East. Like, oh yeah, that's a really convenient timing for that, but we'll see here. Let's see some of the comments. Shout out Julian Smith, the J-Land. My Cowboys family, what's up? Cowboys X Factor. Yeah. Take some of the open questions here in just a bit. Some of them where it's a little more scatter shooting, where it doesn't have to be just Mavs, but can open up to even some Cowboy stuff maybe. But while I got you on here, I know, Max, you're a little pressed for time. I had a very exhausting, frustrating day up till this point. That's why the show got off to a later start than I expected. But I'm here now, and thank you guys for tuning in as well. So, what's something on your mind if you had to set kind of a not goal, but like a bet of some sort, like something that you would expect for the season, like let's say a projection on Dirk with regard to his points per game. What's something you would say on that is a likely bet for the Mavericks? Dirk scoring 15 plus this season, or what's another good one like that? Dallas winning 36 plus.
Well, I mean, the over-unders have been kind of beaten to a dead horse at this point.
Yeah.
So, in regards to Dirk, I think a good over-under for him would be over or under 20 minutes per game.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that. So last season, Dirk was 24.7 minutes per game. So this season, I'm predicting he comes off the bench, so I'm going to say this season he's probably looking something more along the lines of 19 to 20. I could see as high as 21. So that's actually a really good one, because I think either year he's going to be just on either side of that mark. What do you think on that over-under?
I mean, I think it depends on whether or not they choose to start him.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
Because if they do start him, I think he'll play like 23, 24. But I think realistically he'll probably play like 21, like 20, like right there. And it's like at that point you just got to throw your hands up in the air and be like, do you want to take over or do you want to take under?
Yeah. I think I'm going to lean toward the under on that. I'm going to say he's just under, something like 19 and a half minutes a game. Something in that range feels like a very possible thing here. Because, I do think he comes off the bench this season. Erickson in the comments here predicting Mavs will be in the playoffs. I would be very happy to be wrong on that. But I do think the Mavericks are another year away probably in that regard. I think they probably are in that range that we've discussed. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
If LeBron didn't come to the West, then I'd probably say the Mavs could theoretically have the 8th seed, but nah.
Well, I mean, how many games do the Mavericks have to face the Lakers in? 3, 4? I mean, I don't think that makes up the difference of the Mavericks in the playoff picture, because you got to win at least 44
but not
games.
Not necessarily specifically against the Lakers, but then, there's just one more tougher team, and then there's one less team you can rest your starters against, and still probably
butterfly effect kind of
possibly win it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't make it any easier, and I know the Mavericks have only like 5 nationally televised games this season, none of which are at the AAC from what I can tell. So that's surprising. Meanwhile, I'm sure that the Lakers will be on like 47 and a half nationally televised games, just because they always trip over themselves if the Lakers are worth a damn. So obviously the best player in the world being there now, Lakers are going to be all over the national televised games. And I don't think Dallas has a single one of those at home, which is a little bit of a bummer. I did notice something earlier last week when we talked about this. One thing I kind of griped about a little bit was that Dirk's last game, if he plays it, is in San Antonio, and I was saying, how do you not let him go out with a home game? At least the night before, the second to last game is the night before, and that's, I think, again versus Phoenix, I want to say. I can double check that, but it's the night before in Dallas, and then they go play the Spurs. So It would be weird if it's his last season, like if we end up knowing that it's his last season for him to then not play that final game. But if that's the case, then, you know, we're looking at something where it's a back-to-back. Maybe they rest him or something, as blasphemous as that kind of sounds, but maybe they do look to kind of rest him or something like that, let him play his last game in front of Dallas. And if they're 34, 36 wins, whatever, they're not playing for anything anyway. So we just have to see. But
I'll be back in a second, okay?
Sure. So, yeah, it's one of those things for the Mavericks where Dirk could sit out that final game, and if he does, God, my hair is just all up in my face today. He could sit out that final game, and he would still play his last game in front of the home crowd, which would be cool. It feels kind of weird if it's like his last possible chance to play a game. Like, how are you going to rest a guy if it's literally the last game of his career? But there is a health issue to that as well. If you don't want to risk Dirk blowing out a knee or an ankle or something like that in that game, putting him there for a nothing game just because it's the last game of the season and the last game he'll wear a Mavs jersey. Yeah, if that's the case, you'd rather him not play the game at all, as opposed to, well, he played the last game for Dallas and he went out on a stretcher. Like, that's no good for anybody. So we'll see here. So let me dive through some of these comments here. 20 games might be too early. Still 62 games left. Probably halfway through the season was tanking. So the problem with that is the odds for the lottery this year shifted. You'll have better odds. This is how they're trying to combat tanking, and it kind of sort of works, but not really. The top three, or I guess in this case bottom three, the teams that would pick 1, 2, 3. Take that finger out. 1, 2, 3. They have, I think, a 19% chance of getting the number 1 pick now. And the teams 4, 5, 6 have equal odds as well. So this is how they're trying to combat tanking. But the problem is now, if you have a team that's in that range where they're more like that 4 to 5, all you've done is back it up slightly, where they're still going to be like, well, hey, if we tank just a couple more games, our odds go from like 9.5% at the number 1 pick to 19%. So it doesn't help it there, but your odds do get a little better. That means the Mavericks could have some benefit if they were to record-wise fall in that 6, 7, 8 spot. They could instead still have a better chance of hanging on to that top 5 protected pick that they gave to Atlanta, and that could make a significant difference for them in that regard. So that would be great. I would actually be all for that if they could hold on to the pick for one more year. But I don't think you can wait to the halfway point. I think you have to... 20 games, you're right. 20 games might be a little bit early. But you look at like last year, Memphis and Phoenix in particular, they went to the tank quickly in the season. Like, they did not waste much time starting to throw games. And Dallas kind of hovered around. They lost some in stretches. And then they had the whole thing where Cuban stupidly said they were going to tank and it would benefit them. And then after that, they have to like, no, look, we're not tanking. We're going to go play really hard and win X amount of games in the next dozen or so. So it's one of those things where you just have to see how it shapes up. But I don't think you can wait to the halfway point. If you're going to do it, I think you have to make the decision in the first 30 to 35 games, frankly. Julian Smith, Attitude Era was the best, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, DX, Mankind, and The Undertaker. Yes, it was, Julian. Yes, it was. I assume you're referencing the fantasy booking video I did on that. The Jazz are being overrated, says Isaiah Hunt. I don't know about overrated, man. I thought they were overrated last year, and then I watched them run straight through Oklahoma City. OKC had to fight for its life just to force a 6th game. In fact, I think in a previous episode of Mavs Fastbreak, I actually incorrectly remembered it as a 5-game series because it felt like they destroyed that. Because that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, it's Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, he's a rookie phenom. He might win Rookie of the Year, but it's one phenom rookie versus 3 highly perceived superstars, including at the time the reigning MVP Russell Westbrook, Paul George, one of the better two-way small forwards in the league. And I was still thinking Melo had some credibility to his name. But I don't know. It didn't work out that way. It felt like an ass whooping. You still got Rudy Gobert, the Defensive Player of the Year, and you got some good bits and pieces around them as well. So I don't think Utah's overrated. If you're talking about them being like a top 3 or 4 team in the West, maybe. They were 5 last year, though, and I think they probably get a little better. Maybe, as Max was alluding to, the sort of butterfly effect of adding LeBron to the West shapes up things differently. And now, because they can't surprise people like they did last year, maybe they do look more like a damn tough 6 seed or something like that. But they're a good team. They really are. I was quite humbled watching them in the playoffs versus the Thunder. The Jalen, what's up? Hey, man, what's up? Talking Mavs here today, and we'll work in maybe some Cowboy questions in a bit. My Cowboys family, what's up, Cowboy Nation? That's what's up. Zach Martin is all good. We'll be back for week 1 versus Carolina. That's really good news, man. I was going to actually do a stream later on that. Yep, I see that too. 41 minutes ago, Cowboys escape huge setback after MRI on knee shows no major injury. Excellent update on that, my Cowboys family. Much appreciated. So yeah, I will probably end up doing a video later if I can. If not, then definitely tomorrow on the Cowboys and my thoughts from their second preseason game and really the injury bug. But anywho, talking Mavericks for now. Thanks for that update, though. Cowboy X Factor. Hi, DDP. What's up, buddy? What's up? Eric Anthony, I agree with D-Town. Man, now I gotta look up to find D-Town's last comment to understand what you were saying. Oh, it was the winded tank. Okay, yeah, no, we're good. What are you thinking about Rico? Stubborn coaches won't give him any more opportunities. I'll answer that question at the end of the end of the stream on this one. I tend to try and stay pretty on topic with Mavs for this particular showing, and then I open it up to more general questions at the end of this stream typically. So I will answer that. I just don't want to stray too far from my initial topic. Do you think the Mavs will start the season good this year? Ask Gleh. I think they can very well start 3-1, but then I think that they face a very tough stretch that could quite conceivably drop them back pretty hard, honestly. I mean, if I look at their schedule, I could see maybe not 6-14 start, but I could certainly see them in a dangerous spot like that. And if you're in a dangerous spot like that, that's through the first 2 months of the season, essentially, if you go 20 games. And if you start off that rough, you could very well find yourself saying, we need to start taking a really good look at tanking. Because if you're Dallas and you win only like 34, 35, 36 games, whatever, and then your draft pick setup falls to like, imagine if Dallas got the 6th pick, meaning Atlanta gets the pick. You know how freaking mad we would be? Like, all right, we didn't make the playoffs, and now we don't have a number 1 draft or, you know, a first round pick. So that would just really suck if that's how it worked out for the Mavericks. If you're in their situation, you really need to evaluate early on. If you're going to go balls out right now, that's the mode. That's the mode. They are going to go balls out for the playoffs, and they're going to have to show something. Dennis Smith Jr. is going to have to show a significant step forward for his development if they're going to have a chance. And DeAndre Jordan has to be what he was last year with regard to interceptions. I just got totally sidetracked by a football thing that popped up on my phone. With regard to blocking shots and rebounding, he dropped off last year for blocking shots. So I want to see if he can do that. I want to see if he can do that and regain that form. It looks like they're disconnected with Max. Let me get him back on here. I want to see if he can regain that form, because if he can, then Dallas will be in good position. They'll be getting what they need out of him, which is rim protection plus rebounding. Oh, cool. You can hear the ringing, too. Let me wait until... All right. We got Max back here. Max, how's it going?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to sign off real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so news, DeAndre Jordan report coming in however many weeks. Depends on how school goes.
Okay.
Then after that, training camp invites, finish out all those, and then the 2 ways, and the draft picks.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that, guys. We'll have Max will have a breakdown on the website, thedallasprospect.com, for DeAndre Jordan, kind of a scouting profile for this season.
And that's all I got for y'all. So
Okay.
I can't wait to get back next week. Hopefully things will actually work out that time.
Yeah.
And go Mavs, hashtag MCL.
Yep.
Max Levy at Rangers King 669 on Twitter. No caps. Signing out.
All
Bye.
right. Thanks, Max. All right, so thanks to Max for coming on here with that. Let me now hide the thing saying he's on the phone with us. I don't want to false advertise. So, I know my hair is just a wreck today. Yeah, so if DeAndre Jordan can regain that form, and again, Max will have a scouting profile on DeAndre for this year. Continuing with his series, he did one for Ryan Brokoff and for Ding. We'll probably see one for DeAndre. Maybe a Luka one. Luka's been kind of beat to death as far as scouting has gone. So we'll have another one of those, but we're going to preview some key players for the Mavericks this year and have great scouting breakdowns on them on the website. So if DeAndre Jordan can be that, and Dennis Smith Jr. can take the step forward, and if Luka Doncic can just show that, yeah, he is that guy that has all the hype, then they'll be somewhere. They'll be better, and they'll have a chance to take a big step forward as a team. They won only 24 games last year. I could see them being, obviously the projections are 10 to 12 games better. I could see them being 15 games better. I could see them being right around the 40-win mark if things break right and they continue to grow and develop as a team. But it still feels like they are a ways away from contending. That's why you could feel like maybe they should have waited one more year as far as a high-end draft pick, and maybe they still get that chance if they get a top 5 pick. But regardless, they've made their decision, and they're going to roll with it. So you just got to play it out at this point. Run out the ground ball, if I may borrow a baseball phrase. Let's see here. Cowboy X Factor. I see how DDP has that Luka Doncic look. I'm not going for a Luka Doncic. It's just I cut my hair a while back, 2 or 3 weeks ago, but right now this is just my hair with no product or anything in it at this point. It's pretty much just completely a mess and not very fun. So we'll see. Hopefully it'll be back to normal next time I'm on. Start the year good. I already got that. Ray Rixey says Dennis Smith Jr. breakout year. Man, I hope so. Erickson says Dirk will score 17 a game. Also hope so. Last year, Dirk's average was... That's a very good question as I think of that off the top of my head. Yeah, I want to say Dirk averaged something like 17 last year. Maybe it was even under that. Last year, Dirk averaged only 12 points a game last year. So if Dirk's at 17, and the year before that, it was 14. So if Dirk's at 17, man, things are working well for them, and he is excelling in his 6-man role. I do think it'll bump up a little bit just because he's going to have Doncic and Dennis Smith, and then even DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan will help clean up some of Dirk's deficiencies on defense, which will help Dirk stay on the floor a little more, I think. And then when you got Dennis Smith and Doncic who can create for Dirk and keep him involved, I think that'll make him a little better. To say 5 points a game better, I don't know about that. Dirk averaged 12 points on the noggin last year, though. Dirk needs a statue. The biggest star in Dallas. Yeah, Dirk will get a statue. There's no way he doesn't. The first game of the next year, the first season without Dirk, there will be a statue unveiled at the AAC. I'm convinced of that. Mavs are one good draft pick away from the playoffs. I agree with that as well, but it's not looking like a super strong draft class for next year. And the Mavericks made their deal where unless they wind up in the top 5 now, their first-round pick is gone. So we'll see how that works out. The problem is, as Dennis Smith grows, and same with Luka Doncic, as they grow, they'll get better, and the team will win more games, which is great. But if you don't have enough groundwork and foundation laid on the front end, you might get caught in that purgatory of winning something like 40 to 48 games a year, and contending for the 8 seed, but you're never really a threat to do anything with it. So we'll see. Hopefully that's not the part they're going to get stuck in, but not laying the groundwork at the very outset, I was going to say front end, but outset, that puts you in a bit of a bind moving forward because it limits what you can do overall. Christian Montgomery, what do you think about Dwight Powell being ranked 10th in the top 25 players under the age of 25? Powell had a good year last year, but I'm not going to pretend like I've been a fan of Dwight Powell. I have not. Maybe part of that is kind of the stigma of him being all that's left of that disastrous Rondo trade, and it's maybe affected a little bit of my perception of that, but I also don't think... I think he's pretty much at his ceiling. I don't think there's really anywhere else for him to go. And so if he's 10th on that top 25 under 25 list, that to me, that's surprising because I feel like I could rattle off more guys at that age that are better or at least have a brighter future, a higher ceiling. And I know that there's been some talk within the Mavericks that they're worried he might already be close to that ceiling of his. If that's the case, then I don't see the 10th rating on that list. But he had a good year last year. I don't want to take too much away from him. He's got an option after this year, I think, and he'll probably opt in for that. He's making like $10 million. When he got that new deal he got, I was very perplexed, and it's not a deal that... And last year, again, was better, but it's not a deal I feel aged it particularly well. Dirk might even play another season, though. He said this. He hasn't said this is last year. That's true. He could potentially do that, but Dirk has also told us when Kobe retired and he did his season-long swan song and his last trip to every arena around the league, they ran video packages and gave him gifts and all that stuff. Dirk hated that. Dirk was like, yeah, I'm never going to do that. When I retire, it's going to be like the season ends and either in the literally unless it's the ending game press conference or the exit interview like later that next week, that's when he's going to announce it. He's not going to come out and tell people this is it, this is the final season. And so I think him kind of saying like, hey, if my body feels right and things are working, maybe we'll go one more year. It's possible, sure, but I think it's kind of Dirk just sort of muddying the waters a little bit on the guarantee of that because he doesn't want that season-long send-off. It distracts from the team's season, and I think Dirk understands that. I could see Dirk sitting against the Spurs and playing his last home game in the NBA. Yeah, I agree. I hate that his last game is on the road. Yes, there's history with the Spurs, and it's better than going to Minnesota or something for the final game. And the worst thing the NBA could have done, at least they didn't do this, was have the Mavs like end the season on like a 4-game road trip. I would have boycotted the hell out of the NBA for that, man. That would be a travesty. But all the same, Dirk's going to play his second to last game, will be his final home game. And because Dallas has, 14 back-to-backs this season, I imagine Dirk will sit the second night of most all back-to-backs, and there is a very real chance he could sit his last game of his career, which is a back-to-back. And again, it would be silly because it's for rest, even though it's his last game. But, you know, if he's physically worn down, you don't want to risk him then playing only to get hurt. And then it's like, well, great, now our last memory of Dirk was, you know, being wheeled off the court in a wheelchair. That's no good. So, yeah. It would suck, but it is what it is. It's the hand we've been dealt, and we just got to roll with it. Call it disrespect to the Mavs if you want. Certainly would not be the first time the NBA and national media has done that, but we'll roll with it because that's what we got to do. Mavs fans for life. Mavs fan for life from the Philippines, says Carmela. Will fly to the U.S. to watch Dirk play this season. That is what's up. That is awesome. I love hearing that stuff. That's one thing I love about basketball. I love football and I love the Cowboys, but basketball is such an international game, and it feels bigger. Like in terms of, obviously in terms of like a worldwide stage, it obviously is bigger than American football, But I love hearing that stuff because you have all these fans from, the Philippines, or you'll have fans from Europe or things like that, and they'll make these trips, these kind of pilgrimages almost, to Dallas just to see a guy play a game in his last season. That's incredible, man. That is greatness. I'm going to try and go to as many games as I can this season as well. Hopefully, I will be credentialed for some of these as well. I've been credentialed in the past when I wrote for ProjectShanks.com. That's no longer around. But got pregame and postgame locker room access, Rick Carlisle's press conference, the whole Mark Cuban Stairmaster press conference he does before every game where all the media's crowded around him on his Stairmaster and he's sweating buckets. But it's been a few years since I've done that, and I would very much like to do it again now. I feel like I've kind of built up this platform, the Dallas Prospect, to respectability, hopefully. And so hopefully I can get access back, especially since I had it before. But we'll see. That is my goal, is I'm going to try and get as much locker room footage and quotes and all that I can for you guys. And when we do this weekly show, I'm going to plug the footage, and I'm going to let you guys see it and bring you into the thick of things as best I can. That is my goal. So stay tuned for that. And trust me, as I know more about that developing, I will let you know. Hang on, Fireblade. I just saw your message tagging me. I'm almost caught up on that part of the comments. My realistic expectations for the Cowboys this year. For that, Christian, I'll tackle that question more in depth at the end of this stream. I will also say check out my stream with the Sports Fury. It's on my channel as well. It is a win-loss prediction video for the 2018 Dallas Cowboys. It's 30-something minutes long, and I go game by game with the Sports Fury, breaking all that down, including a range of they could win at least this many games, all the way to, if things break right, this many games. So check it out. But I will answer your question at the end of this. Do you remember Oliver Miller? That's when I knew Cuban cared. He cut him and then... yeah, I do remember that, Kent. That was funny. Big Dirk Mav fan here from Manila. What is up? Man, this, again, brings the world together. Love it. Any inside trade or updates to bolster our lineup this season? I don't know about any big trades that might happen. I will say that be on the lookout between now and the trade deadline for possibly moving Wes Matthews. He's on an expiring deal, and that's a possibility. They like him a lot. They love Wes, but you've got value in trading him, so maybe they look to do that. That's something to keep an eye on. Do you think Luka Doncic will win Rookie of the Year? He could. It's possible. He's the favorite. 58% of interviewed or surveyed whatever GMs or whatever around the league. It wasn't GMs. I think they just had front office, which feels even more generic. But they predicted that he would win Rookie of the Year. He's the favorite, but Dennis Smith was the favorite at this time last year, and Dennis Smith was a distant third in the finish. So whether he wins it or not, honestly, to me, is irrelevant. If he shows out and he shows that he's worthy of the hype, then I'm thrilled. Dennis Smith, again, distant third, I didn't care. I liked enough of what I saw to believe in the direction of the franchise with him at the helm. That's all I cared about. Thoughts on Jalen Brunson? Jalen Brunson, man, he has won at every level. Oh, this is from Lewis T, by the way. He has won at every level. The dude is a straight winner. He's a 6'2" point guard. His hero growing up, idol, basketball, all that, was Steve Nash. That's why he wears 13 for the Mavs. And he's legit. He didn't have a great summer league, but I think he will be a solid backup point guard for years to come for the Mavericks. So I think he's got a lot to show. Now he needs to work a little bit on his turnover rate just from what I saw in summer league. But again, I'm not putting too much stock into that right now. Chris Bosh making a comeback to the Lakers, rumor has it, says Cam Hicks. Good for him if he does, no doubt. Chris Bosh, man, it's a shame that his career kind of got stolen from him with those, what was it, blood clot issues or something something like that, where he had like a blood clot in his leg or something. That's a shame that his career got kind of robbed from him. So if he does come back and he does rejoin LeBron, more power to him, man. That guy deserves it. I'd like to hear your thoughts on Brunson too. Excited. Oh, I just answered that on the dude one. But, you know, to be fair, you probably put that comment down before I read your comment and before I answered his question. So no worries. All right, Fireblade, I'm up to you. Which player do you think we should target in free agency next year? I am very curious about one Jimmy Butler. Because Jimmy Butler is a very dynamic two-way player. He is a shooting guard, which with Wes leaving, that becomes a open possibility, an open need for the Mavericks. And instead of just plugging in like a Devin Harris or something to run a two-guard lineup, a two-point guard lineup or something like that, I would very much like to see Dallas go get one of these guys. And while he is a big fish, he is not such a big fish that he feels unobtainable. He doesn't have a home or a connection. Now, there is talk that he could go to the Knicks, that he would like to go to the Knicks. And I've seen some stuff that right now says the favorite for him and Kyrie next year, the favorite destination in terms of likelihood, is them pairing with the Knicks. If that happens, if he stays in the East, or goes back to the East rather, all right, well, he's got an easier path that way, but if I'm Dallas, I'm very interested in Jimmy Butler. Interested enough that I would almost go as far as to say, hey, before the deadline, maybe give a call and just see what the price is, because he's not signing up with Minnesota, and therefore, I feel there is a better than good chance he will be dealt before the deadline, because they're going to want to get something for him rather than nothing. That being the case, Dallas would be a good fit. Minnesota would get an expiring contract in Wes Matthews and, let's say, Dwight Powell. His isn't expiring, but still. Check it out. Absolutely, if you're Dallas, check that out. And you'd have to kick in something else, I'm sure. But, again, Jimmy Butler, man, if you add Jimmy Butler to Dennis Smith Jr., Luka Doncic, and, well, DeAndre Jordan's a one-year deal. Whatever. If you add him to those two, and you've still got a handsome chunk of money for next year. And by the way, if you're acquiring him, the assumption is that you're also signing him long-term as well. If you have all that and you still have $50 million in cap space next year, holy crap. That is how you do a rebuild if you're Dallas. Rough Reven. How can Dwight Powell be a top under 25 list when he's 27? I thought that seemed a little fishy. Yeah. Good call out on that, Ruff. I was wondering about that. I think Dwight Powell's pretty much at his ceiling as far as his potential and development. That being the case, Brownie41, Mavs fan for life. Who you think will be the All-Star first, Dennis or Luka? Dennis has the sexier game, so I'm going to put my money on Dennis. Because Dennis Smith has the jaw-dropping athleticism. And he can, because of his ups and his athleticism, he can dunk at eye level with the rim. He can win a dunk contest. Should have had a better shot at it last year. He kind of got robbed on a score early on. He could block shots off the backboard with ferocity. He can do all of that. And he's quick enough that he can produce a lot of steals. So I really think he is more likely to make an all-star team first, because it's a fan voting thing and the fans love that. That is what they look for most in their game. And that, and Luka Doncic being more of a 2-3, he'll have to go up against forwards, and there are a lot of good forwards to have to go against in all-star voting. So we'll see, but my money would be on Dennis Smith as a point guard. John Davis, Dwight Powell's not good. He's a bit below average at best. Yeah, he did better last year. He had a good year last year, but his overall resume has not been strong. Say prime time. Cowboys will go 11-5. Hope so, man. I'd love that. Do you think Harrison Barnes... Oh, there's a gleh. Do you think Harrison Barnes will average around 20 points like he did the first 2 years in Dallas? Maybe. I mean, he's averaged about 19... He hadn't averaged 20 yet in Dallas. I think he's averaged about 19 both seasons. He'll have Dennis Smith and Luka Doncic, who, while they can take some pressure off of him, they're also going to take some of those shot opportunities away. Dirk being another year down the road means he'll take fewer shots, presumably. That being the case leads me to believe he'll probably be in the 18 to 20 range like he has been. I don't think he can continue taking another step forward with it, but they don't need him to. Their goal with their build right now, even if he is in their future plans, is for him to be that Michael Finley, aka that third best player on their roster. And he can be their third best player, but if they're wanting to go to the point where they're contending for a title again, I would argue he needs to be more like your fourth best guy. We'll see how that works out, though. Maybe I'm wrong. V kills it for the win. Do you think there's a chance of getting Jimmy Butler? That's what I just said, bro. Again, you probably put that comment down before I saw it, so just playing with you. But yeah, I think there's a chance. It's tough because I think his preference is to go back to the East, and if his preference is to go back to the Eastern Conference, then the Knicks would be a possible thing for him. But Minnesota's probably going to move him by the deadline because he's not taking a max deal with them, and if that's the case, then they're going to try and move him. And if you're Dallas, maybe that's the bet. You say, hey, you don't really have roots anywhere. Yeah, you're interested in playing for the East, but hey, it was a foregone conclusion that Paul George wanted to go play for the Lakers. And then when the time came to it, he didn't even take a meeting with them. He didn't meet with anybody. He met with the Thunder, and at 12:01 signed a new deal, announced he was staying. So sometimes fortune favors the bold, man. And if you're Dallas, if the worst you're giving up is Wes and Dwight, and you get a shot at locking up Jimmy Butler long term, pairing him with Dennis and Luka, why wouldn't you at least try that? Let's see. Thoughts on Ray Spalding? I like Ray Spalding a lot. Dude is a very good defender, very athletic, capable in the pick and roll. Good rebounder as well. I like a lot what I see from Ray Spalding. He's a little raw for the NBA game. I imagine he'll probably split sometime with the G League team and the main roster, but I don't know how much he'll play with the main roster. I think he is a very, very good, not foundational pick. Rotational even sounds like not the phrase I'm going for. He's a good piece to the puzzle for your team moving forward. I think he can contribute a lot and bring a lot to the table for future teams, but I think he needs a year, maybe even a year and a half to kind of develop through that early portion of it. At pick 56, he's a steal. I honestly believe that. I am very high on Ray Spalding for the Mavericks. I think the Mavericks had probably the best complete draft they've had in franchise history, but we'll see. At some point, the guy's got to produce. We're about a month away from training camp, and we'll get a chance to see where they stand. So I'm going to take a few more questions here, guys, then I'm going to have to wrap this stream up. Let's see here. Can Jalen Smith make the Pro Bowl this year? Says Say Primetime. Let me take the one more question that's on there for the Mavericks first. Say Primetime, and then I'll start hitting those Cowboy ones. Let's say we keep next year's pick and somehow get the first pick in the top 3. Who do you think we should get? It feels too early for me to say on that, honestly. We hadn't even gotten to the college basketball season. I want to see where we're at that point. Obviously, you got a lot of hype with guys like Zion that you want to take a look at, but that's something that probably my normal co-host, Innie and Duca, would have some good input on. I tend to like to wait until we're at least halfway through the college season before I start spotlighting like him. That's the guy I want. Probably better if I'm pointing towards the camera. Like him. That's who I want. Go get him. Go get him. But we just got to see. So, Say Primetime asking about Jalen Smith Pro Bowl. Could he? Possibly, but I don't think he has to be yet. I think he needs a little more time, honestly. He in terms of his athleticism, his explosion, it all looks like it's there. I don't know that he's Notre Dame Jalen Smith, but he's much more that guy that we thought we would get when we took him in the second round. And I think he's ready to make a serious impact this season. Whether that gets him into the Pro Bowl, I don't know. Things happen where the team who goes to the Pro Bowl, they'll have had like a Pro Bowl linebacker, and suddenly he's not going to go, so you have alternates. Maybe he gets in as an alternate. But all that matters is that he takes a significant step forward and that he can. I mean, the thing I think you're going to see a lot from him this year is pass rushing. I think they're going to use him around the line of scrimmage, try and get him going downhill where he is a freakish monster. And if that's the case, they're going to have a serious weapon on their hands, because that play he made, I shared it on the Facebook page, was ridiculous how he moved through traffic, found the back, and then laid the wood on him in the backfield. That was impressive. Or maybe like right at the line of scrimmage. Scroll back up to hitting my Cowboys family. I don't even know if they're still here, but I did see their question. Let's see. Talking about that. Oh, what do you think about Rico? Yeah. All right, I remember now. Yeah, so Rico Gathers, I feel like, is in a tough situation where they're not going to look to... I think they've already kind of made up their mind on Rico, frankly. And Jerry's comments, yeah, that kind of put the exclamation point on it, talking about how he's got a lot of tools there, but, you know, he's a good blocker when he blocks the right guy. And what makes you angsty is the guy that you have to cut in order to keep him on the roster, meaning they're afraid of having to let go of a really good talent again, means they kind of think they had to do that previously, let go of a really good talent to keep developing him. It's year 3, and they still don't feel like he's there, and they're just like, dude, this at some point you have to acknowledge this is a failed experiment, because there's questions about how committed to the game he is. And I think in terms of what you feel like you're losing, if it's hurting you, and then you don't really know if he's fully all in and committed, that's going to affect your perception as well. So if that's the case, I think Dallas has kind of made up its mind on him, even though he keeps dazzling. He might be a good red zone target for their proper situation, but I agree with Big Game James. I don't think he'll ever be a guy that gets you more than 30, 35 catches a year. I think he is a one-dimensional guy, and it sucks that Dallas apparently doesn't think that they can use him for that, but they don't think they can trust him on the field for how they play. So if that's the case, then I don't know. Probably just go ahead and cut him, I guess. It's going to upset a lot of people, but I think that's looking more and more likely every day. Will Jason Garrett be fired if we don't go anywhere this season? I think he should be. If there's one guy that seems bulletproof other than Marvin frickin' Lewis of the Bengals, it probably would be Jason Garrett. But I think that Garrett needs to go if they don't make the playoffs. I think we need a change, whether that's moving Chris Richard up all the way to head coach, or whether, I mean, if you get a new head coach and you don't make Chris Richard the head coach, he's gone. The whole coaching staff will change over. And if that's the case, I think that's a mistake. I think Dallas needs to just take the swing and move Richard to head coach if they like what he does this year. If they look at what he's done and the energy he brings. Right now, the word is they're smitten with him, but you just got to see how it shapes up. So if it works out and they can move him into that starting to look at the head coach thing, then great. That's what they need. But if Garrett can't make the playoffs, they should move on. That's my personal opinion. But because this is the last year of his current deal, so I'm pretty sure. I don't even think it'd have to be a firing. You just don't re-up him. That's it. All right, you served your time. Moving on. We're not going to re-up you. All right, last question here. Randy O. Roberts. Save Primetime says that cutting Rico will be a big mistake. It could be, but that's the direction they seem to be leaning. Randy, who do you think is the player that grows the most as a Mav, and who will be the one that takes the biggest step back? There's something to be said about a sophomore slump. It could mean Dennis Smith Jr. doesn't take the step forward we're hoping and that we expect. Maybe it's a more lateral step, or maybe it's even a step back. If his jump shot, we've seen all the highlights of his dunks in the offseason, and they are freaking amazing. They are jaw-dropping. But we haven't seen him working on that jump shot, and that is a little bit of a question. If he's not able to connect on that and score more efficiently than he did his rookie season, because that was really a big knock on him his rookie season, was he was not an efficient scorer. I would say that's one of the big things that held him back. And then, of course, you had Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell run away with it completely. But if he can't step forward, that's a big threat, because that affects them moving forward and how quickly they can complete this rebuild. Who do I think grows the most? I would say he's also a candidate for growing the most, frankly. I think you could see a better Harrison Barnes as well, with a little bit less of the weight on his shoulders now, not having to be like a true number one option now. He's going to get to share that time with Dennis and with Luka Doncic, and I think that'll lessen his workload, might allow him to be a little more efficient, which would be very good for him. But, yeah, we just got to see. Buddy Johnson, bro, I am glad Zach Martin is okay. Yeah, absolutely. Zach Martin had a massive scare on that. The Cowboys were dropping like flies the last week. I put out Dallas Prospect Live on last Thursday was talking about, the injury bug is starting to come around because LVE, Leighton Vander Esch, Tavon Austin, guys like that started getting hurt in practice, Travis Frederick, and then suddenly in the game you have Byron Jones go down, although he came back and was fine. Xavier Woods, you're already deadly thin at safety, and now you lose your starting safety. Zach Martin, you lost Jameel Showers. I mean, guys just started dropping like flies. So the fact that Zach, the most critical of them, is okay is fantastic. The fact that I don't know yet about Xavier Woods, that one concerns me, and that might force Dallas's hand to make a certain phone call to a certain Pacific Northwest team on the West Coast. Maybe. We'll see. But I think that's going to wrap up my time, guys. I appreciate all of you who joined in here. If I did not answer your question, by all means, hit it up in the comments of this video once it adds to the channel as a archived video. Hit it there. I will see it there. I will answer your question, whether in the comments there or I'll hit it up in the next stream. Other than that, guys, thank you again for watching. Stay tuned for another Cowboys update, whether tonight or tomorrow. I will do more. But until next time, I've been DDP with the Dallas Prospect. And remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.